This next one is about data. And if you thought that the last session had a bunch of nerds and geeks on it, this one has twice the geekage component. We have 4 people, including Chris, who is from UNSW City Futures, an academic. Dr. Sophia Maalsen from University of Sydney, another academic who knows her stuff. We have Steve Millward from SERV and Nathan Krisanski from KNIC Ventures. We have a power-packed panel of folks who are going to break down this really important question. If data is the new oil, and the winners are going to be who can share and monetize that data, how can you get access and share into that data in a world that has infinite amounts of data and complexity? They're going to share 4 of the killer trends that are happening over the next 20 minutes. Please buckle yourselves in. Big welcome to Steve, Sophia, Chris, and Nathan.
Alrighty, everybody, data. Let's sink our teeth in. I wanted to take a quick chance to do a Proptech thing and do a 30-second elevator pitch to everybody to introduce themselves properly. So we'll do that. Let's start down the end there. Do you want to kick us off?
I think that's me, is it?
Yes, yeah.
Hi, I'm Chris Pettit. I'm Professor of Urban Science at University of New South Wales and Director of the City Futures Research Centre. It's been around for 20 years, co-founder of 2 Proptech companies, Value Australia, Map AI, and great to be here.
Perfect.
Thanks. I'm Sophia Maalsen. I'm a researcher in urbanism and housing at the University of Sydney. I should say I actually don't do big data, but I look at the implications of big data, and I've done a lot of ethnographic work on big data projects, including city dashboards. And I'm really interested in questions around like what data we need, how much data we can actually find of the stuff that we need, and how much we collect and what we should collect.
Perfect.
I'm Steve Millward. I'm General Manager of Customer Growth for SERV, which is the private operator of the Victorian Land Registry. And I've also been involved in setting up the collective of all the state land registries, which is called Australian Land Registry Operators. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It tries to bring together a lot of different data sets from the 5 largest states of Australia.
Perfect. And Nathan Krisanski, for anyone who I haven't met before, I've been through CoreLogic, been through Ray White in data and software development, had my own startup and exit, and sort of been through all of those life cycles. Working now in a consulting space around this as well. But love everything data, love everything software development. So I'm super keen to get into this data conversation. I want to kick off with you, Steve, just talking about a topic that's come up a few times already today, and that's data availability. And what are you guys doing in that space at the moment?
Yeah, so I'll give you a bit of background. I've been in data for 30 years now, and I've seen all the glamorous stuff come in, like big data and now AI. Which is all amazing, but I still think one of the biggest issues is that most of the world's data is inaccessible. It's either not available at all because pretty much every organisation is told keep your data safe and secure. It's fragmented, so it's split across different governments in different states, different departments, local and state government. It's not in digital format or it's inconsistent. And I think one of the big challenges for Proptechs is trying to navigate that. If you're trying to have to deal with 8 different states and territories and also loads of different government departments at state and local level, it's basically an insurmountable task. And so when we set up as private operators of the land registries, one thing we recognised was this was a problem that needed to be solved in order to drive innovation and allow organisations like Proptechs to do new things. So we've really been focused on looking at it from a customer point of view and getting rid of some of those obstacles. The Australian Land Registry Operators has really set out with that goal to take 95% of the land registries in Australia and make the data consistent, make the data products consistent, make it so you only have to deal with one organisation rather than 5 or 8, and take some of those problems away. I think there's a lot more work to be done. I'm seeing our remit really as within government altogether. Private sector's a step too far, but within state and local government, there's still loads of work that can be done to make data easier to access. Our job, I think we see ourselves as infrastructure, like as the investors in the privatised land registries have come from the investment parts of the investors themselves. So those departments also invest in roads and airports and ports. But we're seen as infrastructure, and the more we can create that infrastructure, let other people do cool stuff on top, the better it is for everybody.
Perfect answer, and that's actually a great segue over to Chris as well, talking about data liability and that digital planning and things as well in your space, Chris. You mentioned, I think when we were talking 3.5 billion data points that you guys have got in your data systems.
Yeah, for the Value Australia project, which was a research project that went for 6 years, that we originally partnered with Domain, but PEXA bought the IP and have taken to market. We acquired through data partnerships, which is the way to go as a research centre, whether it's research centres or startups. I think without the data, you can critique it, which is really important to actually understand what some of those barriers are and solutions, but you can't build and test innovative products. So whether it's open data, and we've got the ABS and various government agencies around the country provide open data, which supports a lot of research and innovation, which is fantastic. But we need those data partnerships with registry officers, with whoever, in the right sort of data agreement way to deal with that issue of fragmentation. Because the reality is, if you're running a research centre or you're setting up a startup, as you were saying before, Nathan, data is the new oil, and you need that. So, and then there's a whole bunch of issues that we're discussing which need to be solved, and we need to work together as an industry to solve those. But at the same time, we need to make sure we have that innovation, that pipeline, which is fueled by data.
It's such a chicken and egg scenario, isn't it? I know as a startup for myself, I was building a data viz startup and I couldn't get access to data. It's like, well, how do I prove out that this solution is actually going to do anything when I can't get access to anyone's data to show it? It becomes a big problem. And so, yeah, absolutely. And this was, I think 12 years ago when I was first starting that process, and that was a lot harder back then, but it's definitely getting a lot better. You mentioned there the research side of things as well, and so I want to jump straight into Sophia on that. You had your recent project, but I think I wanted to hear from you around the difficulties around accessing that data from a research point of view, because you don't have that commercial need.
Exactly.
And then
I mean, just to be a broken record here, like one of the key challenges is accessing the data. And some of the work that I did with these people building a dashboard, for example, was we had great ideas about what we wanted to show, but we couldn't actually find, and this was working within local government and sort of, it was different countries, so different jurisdictions, the amount of data that we wanted, the data and the quantity and temporalities of it, like the census does great stuff, but it's only every 5 years or so. So I think this idea, as you say, like we can do so much with these sort of technological infrastructures to analyse it, but actually getting good data to put in is the key challenge. And for researchers, even though it's not building the tech, but sort of wanting to ask questions and think, this is one of the key challenges. And again, data costs a lot of money. So how you fund that, so you do your partnerships or grants or things like that. Yeah. So I think, and that's the same for if you're developing a Proptech, as you say, like what is, one of the ways to go about it, I think, is being very clear on your question of what it is you're trying to do, so you don't go collecting randomly and wasting more time, and can really focus in on the actual data sets that are going to help you.
Yeah, that's perfect. I know, speaking about research, we've been talking about housing affordability and a lot of policy things today as well. I think as an industry, we've been a bit too separate from those decision makers and making our data effectively available for research, because that can then allow us to impact policy and have further effects down the line. So I think it's a bit of a call for us as an industry in the Proptech, in the tech space, is to engage with our researchers and engage with that audience around to help make that change come about. I know it's something Kylie's still there. Yes, Kylie's very focused on as well at the moment. We spoke a little bit about the landlord project that you ran, and I guess the insights that you had around making sure you knew the right question to ask around that. Yeah,
so we had actually, I think AJ was at our sort of envisioning workshop around what would be a good sort of technology for tenants and to know about their landlords. So sort of flipping that data discussion on the head, that we have all this data on tenants, this is a discussion, what do we know about landlords? And so there was this sort of like, what would be, imaginary scenarios, and we worked with this design team who built this sort of Know Your Landlord app. And what we put on there were sort of, interestingly, what came out of the discussion, I should say, was actually it ended up being less about the landlords. What people, and that's the tenants, unions, our other various stakeholders wanted to know was actually about the quality of the house that you might, and things like its accessibility, things like that, all of which isn't available. So we created this fictional universe where you had this app where all these data sets were ostensibly on it. And the value of that was actually in pointing out, you know, the things that people want to know but aren't, again, are the gaps there. And so that kind of exercise is really useful in, again, focusing that question and knowing where to put your energies and trying to find that data. And, you know, we had people from various government, industry, tenants unions, and there's like, even our rental commissioner wouldn't have access to that data. So who, you know, that kind of...
Who knows that?
Who knows that?
Yeah. And the answer earlier was the agents and the property managers, right, who are out there dealing with this day to day. So the bit I took out of that was as technology providers, we're making decisions effectively about what data is being collected. Yeah. So when we're building applications for rental inspections, we're deciding as a technology provider and with our customers what data is collected, but there's a larger picture there where we can engage with, say, researchers to understand what are the data points that our government actually needs to start making better policy around these things, and then start to include that as our data collection, which I think is really powerful and a thing to think about. I want to come back to you, Steve. We talked about the historical data and effectively you've been collecting the same data for the last
160 years.
Yeah, the 160 years. There's obviously a huge process to digitise that and modernise that, I guess. How far along that journey are you guys? What are the things you've been working on?
I think it differs. I mean, I think in some ways we've made some changes that seem obvious with hindsight, but have made a big difference. One example is when I joined SERV, the only way you could access a copy of title, which is used for buying and selling properties, mortgages and so on, the only way you could buy a copy was as a PDF. So it had gone from the kind of paper title stored in the basement that someone had to go down the stairs and look up to a PDF. Now, if you're a Proptech or a bank or a conveyancer, having a PDF isn't very helpful. And users were even prohibited from extracting the data from that PDF. So we've just implemented a JSON format for titles. So we're trying to do that now to just increase that liquidity, make information available. Another issue with the land registry information is you can do a search of a title today. You're using it in the next 6 months to do due diligence on a property, but the day after you buy the title, something could have changed. Someone could put a caveat on. So it's very static. It's still going back 160 years when it was all set up. We're starting to move more towards live information, alerts on things that are changing, notifications when another copy can be bought. And then we're trying to do that across all the different states as well, and then start to do that with all the other data that is out there, because a lot of that is still mired in this kind of old-fashioned way of either PDFs or, I think go back 100 years. It was all just you write a letter and ask for some information, you get it back 2 weeks later. We're trying to change all of that, but it moves a bit at a time.
Yeah, sure. I think we, this morning we was talking about Agora and, the unsexy, unsellable hard work that has to go into building that under that foundation, I guess. Yeah. That's what I'm hearing. You guys have been focused, quite a lot on making sure we're building that right now.
The infrastructure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you mentioned something about, was it Geoscape?
Geoscape. So
Geoscape.
We've got a panel this afternoon. There are some like-minded organisations that are trying to solve the same problems. Geoscape is one that brings together data from a lot of geospatial data from across the different states. The other organisation on the panel is LIXI, that's been building data standards for transmission of information to financial services. These are all necessary things that needed to be done. Like I think the comparison would be the financial system's got very, very liquid data. So if I wanted to pay any of you $50 now, I could use my phone, it would happen in seconds, we'd all trust it. But if you want to get data from a land registry or a council or another organisation, that liquidity is not there. It takes ages, it's a lot of hassle for you. But there are other organisations that we're coordinating with to try and make it easier so that everybody can build on that basic infrastructure.
Yeah, perfect. Chris, jumping over to you, I know you've got something in the works around that as well, around the
Yeah, I guess if the data is available, and we're using New South Wales as an open data testbed, because in New South Wales we've got really good open data, VG data, transport data, planning data. So we've been working with Frontier SI, and we've spun off a new company called Map AI, which basically using AI to talk to your spatial data. So show me all the properties within 400 meters of a train station, and it will just produce that map, because we're trying to deal with one of the barriers that if you've got the data, you need the expertise, you need a degree in geographical information systems or something, or you need a GIS team in your office to actually, run those queries, produce those maps, whether it's, sort of a color map, or it's to do a buffer analysis or a walk score, like Lucinda was talking about. What if you could just ask your map? So that's what we spun off about a year ago. And trying to sort of have that UI replaced by AI, and links into the dashboard area. So we're breaking down those barriers so anyone can start to talk to their spatial data.
If I can just add something to that, open data is great, but there's often only the most innocuous data is made open. There's still a load of information that's kept locked away. What we're trying to do is, even though data is not going to move completely into the open realm, there's a third space in between open and closed data, which is sensitive data that's valuable, that needs to be carefully looked after. But if it's done in the right way, it can be made more open. And I think that's one of the big changes that will come along.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Just quickly, just say too, Steve, it's not just open data that we're working with, because like you said, these solutions have to work and respect that there's commercial data sets. So it's been able to get those sorts of AI tools, making sure we got the right data privacy, trustworthiness, so you can go across that whole landscape.
I don't know if anyone's tried to work with GIS systems before. We've got much better tools these days, the map boxes of the world and things like that. Ian will remember back in the Ray White days, we used to run our own map server and have to update our shape files and all sorts of things, and it's a nightmare. So I do have a history in that now, because we had to figure it out, but it's much nicer now to be able to use tools like that. I forgot to mention, actually, Kylie said right at the start we need to say happy birthday to Ian. Ian, happy birthday, mate.
Happy birthday.
You weren't going to get away with it today. Just to finish off, I think, Chris, again, you also mentioned, we were talking about Archistar and some of the work you guys are doing there. Did you want to talk about that project as well?
Yeah, very quickly, if you want to talk to me further, we've just got a project funded by the federal government called Urban Copilot, which is around using AI, working with Archistar, who are the lead on it, to really try and deal, there's a number of us in the room trying to deal with the planning systems and just the spaghetti that exists there, and trying to make that quicker, more easy to navigate. So that's a project we just got funded for the next 3 years. It's a research project called Urban Copilot. We're also launching next year a housing analytics lab funded through the Premier's office, which will be a physical space in Tech Central, being sort of hosted by the Commonwealth Bank. That will be open to run hackathons and all sorts of things to deal with the housing challenges that Lucinda walked us through earlier.
Perfect. Great place to finish us off for today. So thank you to all our great panellists. Thank you everyone for listening. You mentioned you've got another, in one of the breakout sessions as well. You can come talk about more of the data.
Yes, please.
Yeah.